What is the cure for sex addiction? There is one thing you need, just one thing. I know what it is, and I'm going to show that to you today. I have treated thousands of people who have struggled with sex addiction. I'm known as the expert on the popular podcast, The Betrayed, The Addicted, and The Expert. So I guess I'm an expert on sex addiction. I've spent hours and hours and hours. I've seen the way that sex addiction is treated change over the years. I understand it inside and out. And I understand what actually brings real recovery, real healing from a sex addiction. So I'm going to talk about it today. And as you listen to me, you're going to understand that what I'm saying is true, but you're also going to understand that it's hard to get. So I'm going to show you how to step into it, how to get it, and how to heal from your sex addiction. Simply put, addiction is a disorder that loves secrecy. It lives in the dark. Addiction and denial or distorted thinking are best friends. Now, what I mean by that is that in order to have an addiction, you have to distort your thinking. You have to live in denial, or you have to live in the dark. In other words, in order to have an addiction, you have to be dishonest with yourself and with others. You have to be, because that's how an addiction thrives. It thrives on rationalizing your behavior, minimizing what you're doing, manipulating your partner, manipulating your parents, and not getting them to see the reality of the situation. When you can live in the dark, when you can distort reality, your addiction will thrive. Now think about it. Why do you need to live in the dark or in denial in order for your addiction to thrive? And the reality is because underneath all of that is shame. Shame that says that you're not good enough as you are, that you're a failure, that you need to hide who you are because you're not lovable. Now, if you believe those things about yourself, then you're going to manipulate others to not see who you are. You're going to not talk to God and connect to God about it either. And you're not going to be very connected to yourself because you don't want to face the reality of things. You believe lies of shame that actually push you into denial. If addiction were a car, then the engine of that car would be shame. And the fuel helping that engine run would be denial and lies. That's what keeps the shame going, and it's what keeps that car moving. Addiction deteriorates a person's sense of self and self-worth. If I'm living a double life and I'm juggling all these lies all the time, then I'm not feeling good about myself. I'm not feeling good about who I am because I'm living in the dark and I'm manipulating things all the time. And I'm just feeling like I'm not okay. When I feel like I'm not okay, then I turn to my addiction in order to get a break, in order to feel okay for a moment. And as I do that, the cycle goes on and on. I feel worse about myself, which leads to acting out or relapse again. So there is one thing you need in order to get into recovery, in order to actually overcome a sex addiction. And if you don't believe me, I'd ask you to try it. Just test it out and see. But the one thing you need is to actually live your life in the light, to be an honest, open, vulnerable person. When you do that, you get into recovery because your addiction can't survive anymore. So how do you do that? I'm going to show you how. But before I do, please comment below and talk about what you've done to try to overcome your addiction. And also remember to like this video. Why is coming out of the dark and living in the light so scary? Because you're going from a place of numbness, a place where you feel safe, where you can hide, to a place of vulnerability. We're designed to not do that. We naturally don't want to do that. But that's what you need to do in order to heal from your addiction. Addiction is somebody's attempt to control pain, to try not to feel pain, and to actually kill vulnerability. When you can numb life out and you can control things, then you're not a vulnerable person. And so you're not prone to pain. But it causes suffering. It causes a lot of pain in the long run. It's important that you get to know yourself and understand your favorite forms of distorted thinking and denial. How do you justify? How do you minimize? What rationalizations are you using in order to keep the addiction going? It's important that you recognize those things and you really evaluate what you do so that you can become aware of it and become accountable for the denial that you're allowing yourself to get into. Honesty with self is so much more than just telling lies or not telling lies. Honesty with self is living in integrity with yourself. It's not living in denial anymore. It's not allowing those justifications and those rationalizations into your life. The one cure for addiction is honesty with yourself and honesty with others. It's being an honest person. Learn how to face what is, own your blemishes, allow yourself to fail. Talk openly with others about how you fail and how you struggle. As you learn how to step into those things and face your failures, face your mistakes, you'll learn how not to justify your way around things, how to actually work through them so that you can get on the other side of them and they don't have power over you anymore. So then you don't have to numb your life out. Learn how to step into reality instead of running from it. Addiction's an interesting thing. A lot of addictions start in our early adolescence, when our brain is developing the capacity to deal with emotion and pain. And if you start to use sex, you start to use drugs or whatever in those moments, then what your brain learns how to do is to actually not cope with those things, but to actually turn to those substances of choice in order to deal with the pain. So now that you're thinking about recovery, you need to stop jumping into the numbing behaviors and start sitting in the pain and working through it and learning that you can work through the uncomfortable emotions and the pain. Quick story. I had a client years ago, one of my favorite clients of all time, but he was cognitively kind of slow. He had a hard time processing things. He was married with 5 kids. He had just lost his job because of his addiction. He was acting out with pornography at work, and he came into treatment. And I talked to him about a lot of different tools, a lot of different things. I gave him a full system for recovery and what he could do. And he looked at me and kind of didn't get it. He didn't understand. And I remember him saying to me at the end of our session, I don't really get what you're saying, but I do understand this. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be honest about everything now. If my wife asks me a question, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell people what actually is going on with my life. And I'm going to deal with the consequences of it no matter what. He may have been cognitively slow, but he was brilliant. He was so smart because he nailed the one thing that mattered. Now, this is 10 years later. He's in solid recovery. He's doing so well. His addiction is not running his life, and his addiction doesn't have power anymore because he chose to be an honest man. Let's talk about ways that we are dishonest with ourselves. Some of these forms of distorted thinking. I talked about rationalization, justifying things, minimizing things. There's other forms of denial. Things like comparing, for example. What that is, well, so-and-so does so much worse than me, so what I'm doing isn't that bad. That's a justification. That's a distorted thought. Blame is another form of denial. If you weren't so mean to me, then I wouldn't have to go do this. I'm acting out or doing this thing because you hurt me. That's a form of denial. Creating distractions is another form of denial. I don't want to step into what is. I don't want to own this, so I'm going to get angry or upset, or I'm going to just totally talk about something completely different because I don't want to face what is. It's another form of denial. Compartmentalization. Now that's a big word. Compartmentalization. What that is showing up some ways in your life here and some ways in your life there. At church, I'm a certain way. With my buddies, I'm a different way. At work, I'm a different way. What I don't want to do is put it all together and just show up as myself in every area of my life. That's another form of denial. I hear crazy things, and when you start talking about denial, it can get kind of funny because the justifications, honestly, can be so stupid. But I had a client who took his mistress to church. And his family showed up. How did he get himself to do something that stupid? Well, he was distorting his thinking. He wasn't in his right mind. I hear stories like that all the time. And that distorted thinking and that denial is what keeps the addiction going. I had a client who was sitting at a stoplight, and he turned and looked at the girl in the car next to him, and she smiled at him. And he started thinking, oh, she wants me. She wants to have sex with me. And so he started following her car. And he followed her car for about 5-10 minutes until she got to her house. And she got to her house, she opened the door, and right then a bunch of cops came and arrested him. What in the world was he thinking? A girl just smiled at him. But in his mind, he started justifying following her car, going to her house. He's thinking that she wants to have sex with him. He's in fantasy in his addiction. He's distorted his thinking to the point where he's doing something that is crazy. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves, that hopelessness is actually a thing. We believe that things are hopeless, and once we get there, then we can justify or rationalize anything. If you believe hopelessness, then you're in a dangerous place with your addiction. If this video is helpful, then you're gonna wanna watch my other video, how to stop feeling like your life is pointless, and that will get you out of that hopelessness. So click on it here.